Recording. You can say hello.
Hi. Hi, Ben. Hi, Robin.
Hi, Ben. Hi, Robin.
We're coming to you from the future.
And of course, Mary's not here with us as well, mostly because she's already kind of had this. So she was our test guinea pig to make sure that when we kind of spoke to her about it, it was something that made sense and was palatable and helped us kind of clarify our thinking in a way that would be more presentable. So that's why she's not here. I've shared with you all a spreadsheet called.
Oh, yeah.
It's called Sample BERT Coin.
I got something about two for a girl.
Well, yeah, that's probably okay. Well, here, let me do this. Give me just a sec, and I'm gonna file.
Are we floating in new currency?
Yeah, we're floating a new currency.
Right.
Yeah, let me see. Hold on, file. Yeah, that should be fine. If you guys, can you open it up, Bruce, and see what it looks like?
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Mine's on.
I'll turn up my video. You don't need to see what I look like.
No.
Yeah, I've got two for a girl spring run. Yeah, is that it, Ermin?
No, that's not it.
Okay, so that's what you sent me and Amy and Charmaine.
Okay, give me just a second. Let me fix that. Okay, you might be getting booted out here.
Okay.
All right. All right, let's try this again. Bruce and Amy and Charmaine. All right, have a go at that.
Yeah.
Did anyone hear my kids singing in the background?
No.
No, nothing.
I can only see Ermin.
I haven't got my camera on. I figured that would just, I don't know.
Nearly out of go to bed.
Yeah, they're in the bedrooms, but they're just singing at the top of their lungs. Okay, sample BERT coin. I've got it.
Beautiful.
Perfect. Yeah, open that up, and that way you'll know what it is I'm talking about. Amy, do you have it open?
Yeah, have you sent that via email, Ermin? Or?
Yeah, GMX for your.
Okay. Yeah. I'm on my phone, so I might not. Yeah.
Or you're Skyping through your phone?
Correct.
Ah, okay.
I'm amazed at how good this connection is.
Ooh.
I'm used to, I expected most of this meeting to be just, sorry, you're breaking up.
Yeah, Skype's made tremendous strides in their quality and their ability. Like, even just this group thing is, I think, fairly new. They used to
Yes.
charge for it, but now...
Yes, that's right. Yeah. I think they got kicked in the pants with all the other ones, blowing them out of the water.
Yeah.
They got complacent.
Guys, just keep going.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, so here's basically the nut of what we've kind of come to a conclusion about. We sort of the meetings that we had leading up to this was basically we spent probably a couple hours just kind of daydreaming about what kind of a company we'd like BERT to be, and then we started looking at, okay, how do we sustain that? How do we make that viable financially? And every model and scenario that we ran, it just wasn't possible. Mostly because we want to build the company without the expectation that we'll find outside funding.
Okay.
Now, there's a chance that we'll get outside funding. It's something we're definitely going to look at. It's not that we're not going to look for it. But we feel like because we're the underdog in the fact that we're in Berlin, we're an English-speaking company, and we've seen the turmoil that's kind of been manifest through the English theater of, ETB, the inconsistency of the funding that they've kind of gone through over the last 6 or 7 years. We just don't want to be beholden to something that that is unreliable at best.
Yes. Yeah.
And we'll never get to the point where, the only way we'll get to the point where funding is like a guaranteed thing is when we become seen as important to the theater landscape as like the Schaubühne or the Berliner Ensemble. And that's not in the foreseeable future. So we have to kind of build the company around the idea of how do we make it sustainable on just its own sweat and tears kind of a thing. So when we kind of came to that conclusion, we realized, okay, we have to build a different kind of a company because we'll never be able to attract. Here's the example. I went to Theater Forum Kreuzberg and was like, hey, just for like a heads up, what do you typically pay like a designer? Because I'm like, I don't even really know what the going rate is for designers and that kind of a thing. But you have a smaller theater company, you do one show a year. When you're mounting a production, what do you, on average, pay a designer to come in and design for you? And Anamoni was like, look, I firmly believe that everybody should be paid the same, but if you're trying to bring professional people on board and get professional quality work, like I wouldn't offer anything less than €1,000 to design a show. And I'm like, okay, well that gives us a number, and so when we kind of looked at that, we're like, all right, well, that automatically means we're going to have to build the kind of company where people want to come and do work with us because they love what we're doing and we provide an opportunity that they may not have otherwise. So in the same thing that sort of brought me into this, it's like I don't speak German. It would take a long time for me to get my German at a level where I would be competitive at the German theaters. And so I don't really foresee that happening. So, those are the kind of people we're going to have to look for in terms of artistic partnership. Either actors or designers or people who, for whatever reason, they can't find work. They find themselves here and they're not able to find the kind of work that would pay them $1,000 a job, and so they're doing it more as a token out of love for the theater. Now, of course, we want to be able to pay people something because we can't sustain the kind of theater that we want to do on zero money. And so, but we'll never get to the point where we can pay the kind of money, $1,000 a pop kind of a thing, right out the gate out front. So then we started thinking, okay, how do we make this fair, equitable, and sustainable? And so Oscar actually came up with this genius idea of the BERT coin. And it really, what it boils down to is it's profit sharing, but it's dissolved down to a point where we can actually look at what an hourly rate for a show is. So then we can look at jobs based on how much time and effort people put into it, and pay them accordingly. So just if you're looking at the sheet here, this is sort of a sample of, for instance, what Christmas Carol 2018 might look like. And the way it boils down to is you figure out the number of cast. You've got the cast there, a cast of 7. This is just a rough idea without the singers, stage manager, assistant manager. BERT as a company will always receive 1 coin, which is equivalent to what everybody else is getting. The coin allocation is based on the number of shows we will do with one particular design before we look at redesigning it, like set-wise, lighting-wise, costume-wise, that. So if we think, okay, if we design it, we love the design, and we can get like 4 or 5 runs out of it, then we'll reboot it and think about like refreshing it and that kind of a thing, since we are a repertory company. So that's kind of how the BERT allocation coin goes. And then if you kind of scroll down, it kind of shows you, it's all calculated in there. The production costs, the way it'll be built is essentially BERT will be borrowing money from me and my wife. Like, we'll finance the cost of mounting each show in the beginning. Like, we'll come back and get you, okay? We'll finance the cost of mounting the shows. Yeah, go give Dad a kiss and I'll come back. Are you going to bed? Yeah. Okay, got a kiss. All right, sleep good. Did you like the movie? Yes. Okay, good. I want Daddy and again. Okay, we will. All right. Night-night. Sorry. Where was I?
You and your wife will finance the mounting of the shows.
Yeah. So, we'll finance the cost of whatever it is, the costumes, the sets, whatever the case may be, and then that money will just automatically be reimbursed back to us. So it's like a loan. And then the production costs, whatever we spend on that, will come out right at the top from whatever money we make. And that's already figured in. So the reason I've got like 500, and this is a file that you guys can kind of play with and sort of plug in your own numbers and see like what changes. Since Christmas Carol's already built, it's already designed, there isn't really anything that we need to do. If we decide we want to like paint the backdrops, that kind of thing, I mean, we could spend roughly €1,000 on refreshing it, advertising for it, new flyers, new posters, that type of a thing. Then you would just plug that number in. And then the total number of shows, and it's all automatically calculated. That's actually figured for the number of shows we have planned to do, which is a Thursday, Friday, double on Saturday, and a matinee on Sunday for 4 weeks, which would be 20 performances. And then this is just roughly a 100-seat theater. We will up the cost of tickets, so the ticket price will average between 10 and 18 euro, depending on how and when they're bought. And so we just did an average of 16 euro 50. And then these are just broken down by how well we sell out. So if it's, you see the amount, if it's 10%, 20%, all the way up to 100%, there is automatically figured in the split for the theater, which has a minimum. So if we obviously sell only 10% of the show, we're going to lose money. Yeah, and then that kind of breaks it down for you. And then below that you see the actual, this is kind of just a rough idea. I think these total rehearsal hours is from 2 for a Girl, but the show length, we calculate in the total number of rehearsals, total number of time spent in the show itself, and then that kind of gives you like a very rough idea of what the per hour cost, the effectively hour rate, depending on, you know, how much you're getting paid per hour. That BERT coin value that you see, if you take like 50%, is 154 euros 10 cents. You would then multiply that by the number of BERT coins you're allotted. So if you're 4 BERT coins, you would multiply that number by 4, and that's how much you would get at the end of the show.
Say that again, please.
Because you're allotted 4 coins, right? Each cast member is allotted 4 coins for this scenario.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So that number, for 50%, 154 euros, you would actually multiply that by 4, because you get that per coin.
Yep.
And so that would be the amount that you would be getting for doing A Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
If we sold the show at 50%. Now, what this does for us is then you'll notice on line 9 there's BERT jobs with a 20 coin allocation, and that's just like a rough number. Like we basically then can divide up additional jobs that can be done by anybody who wants to be involved, whether you're in the show or not. And those jobs could be anything from, we need flat painted, or we need somebody to move set from storage over to the theater, or load in, or we need somebody to go pick up flyers, or we need somebody to go hand out flyers, or we need somebody who can manage the Facebook and do social media and that type of a thing. And so for each one of those jobs, we will look at how long does it take. And then we can allocate a whole coin or multiple coins or a partial coin based on the actual number of hours. Like if you're going to come and paint a flat and that's 4 hours, then we can see, okay, that's roughly, if we sell at 70%, that's $2.36 an hour. For 4 hours, that's worth 8 hours. So it's like a percentage of a coin that you get, kind of a thing. It also makes it easier for us to kind of go to designers and say, look, this is the model that we're operating off of. You tell us how long it takes for you to design a show, and then we can kind of use that number to say, okay, then that value equates to, and it's all based on the total number of, the most amount of numbers anybody's putting into a show, which is like the actors and the stage managers who are there from the start of rehearsal all the way through the whole run of the show. We see the total number of hours put in and what that value equates to for each BERT coin. And then we can place a real solid value based on that amount of work on a similar job, so that you don't have a designer who's coming in and getting paid, 800, 900 euros to design a show, but an actor who's been there since from day one walks away with like 600 or 700 euros, and it's not very equitable.
Yeah.
So this is a way for us to sort of make it totally fair and transparent. The other thing that's great about this is it'll be shared with everybody who's involved. So you never have to wonder like who's getting paid what and how much they're getting paid for what they do. You'll be able to see exactly what jobs people have been taking on, and then we can hold each other accountable, or I can hold them accountable. Like, okay, you said you were going to do social marketing. It's worth this much, which means we equate that to this many hours. You need to be putting this many hours into promoting us on, say, social media to earn
Yeah.
the coin that, you know, you're down for. And yeah, so that's pretty much it in terms of the actual pay structure for the show. We recognize that it's probably not going to be appealing to a lot of people, and perhaps even some of you, that it may not be. I mean, looking at those numbers, any one of them could be possibly positive or negative, just depending on how well the show performs. But it creates a greater degree of transparency. So you see the difference between like an 80% sold out show versus a 30% sold out show. It gives you guys a little bit more control and buy-in into helping promote the show and sell the show. And but you also see the risks, you know, that if for whatever reason the show doesn't do as well, you know, it doesn't pay as well. Any questions about that piece of it?
No, that's pretty clear.
Okay, so then from there, the rundown for what's happening for the year. So when we started looking at everything, we've definitely decided not to do Hunchback of Notre Dame. We'll table that. It'll be a project that we will do, but it'll be something that will develop over time. Oh, I didn't even realize we lost Amy. Yeah, we lost Amy, but I'll send her the video from this. She said she just kept on dropping in and out.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, it'll be a project that we'll kind of work out when we, you know, work on from time to time when we have time. Initially, we were thinking, okay, we'll definitely want to do the importance of being earnest. Mostly because I already know a couple of schools that study that, so it's sort of like a built-in like revenue stream if we can get them on board to come and see the show. Plus, it's the kind of show that everybody will know and will be familiar with. It's very much like Christmas Carol in that way. It's easily, I think, fairly easily mountable. It might be a bit expensive to do. So our original thinking was we would mount that show in the spring and do that in conjunction with the 2 one-person shows. But the problem is, because of the casting, I'm afraid like most of the roles would have to be cast, because the people who are in A Christmas Carol, it's a fairly young cast, because you've got Algernon and Jack, who are quite young, and then same with Cecily and what's her face? Yeah, so when I was looking at the casting, like it would take who knows how long to find people. I think there are definitely roles for people who are in the show, who are in Christmas Carol, that they could play. But we'd have to cast at least 2 to 3 other roles, key roles. And it's one of those things, like when I started thinking about how long it took for us to cast Christmas Carol and find good people, it started making me nervous that we wouldn't have the time needed to really put into the show and make it as solid and as quality as it could. My thinking was, whatever the case may be, our next big production, like company production, has to be like 10 times better than A Christmas Carol was. While I think Christmas Carol was okay, was good, it was decent, I think we got away with a lot just because of the novelty of being a new company, and people were excited to be able to see a show in English, and they were just thrilled to come and see it. And I don't know that we can always get by with that kind of goodwill. And so, like, my feeling is we need to have the time to be able to really focus on getting the show up to the standard that it should be. So in the spring we won't be doing a Christmas Carol or the importance of being earnest. We will do just Mary's show and my show. We already have the dates booked through Theater Forum Kreuzberg. It'll open in April the 26th with Mary's show. Mary's show will run for 2 weeks. There's actually, I think, 2 weeks in between them. It goes April 26th, 27th, 28th, and then May 10th, 11th, and 12th. And then my show will open on April 26th, I think. 26th, 27th.
Written 28th.
I'll be back in a second, guys. I've got to go. My kids to.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so it'll just be those two shows. They're already done. They won't cost anything but advertising for us to mount. It'll give us a chance in kind of a smaller way to try the whole switching out between shows in the middle of a run, and see how that works. Although technically we're not really doing that because we already have a built-in week off in between the shows, or maybe 2 weeks. And then we will do in September, end of August, September, we have an additional 3 weekends already booked with the theater, and that's when we will do the importance of being earnest.
Sorry, when? Back.
End of August, September. So that means once our shows are kind of up and running, then we can start the casting process for the importance of being earnest. But we won't be doing rehearsals in the same way that we did for A Christmas Carol. Probably what we'll do is do like a really intense 3 or 4 week rehearsal process, where it's like long Saturdays, possibly even Sunday afternoon rehearsals for like 4 or 5 hours, and then supplemented through the week with, like, if not every night, then as much as possible, so that we can just quickly knock it out. It'll be more of an aggressive rehearsal style in the sense that once the show's cast, we'll basically send out roles and expect everybody to be memorized before they show up. But hopefully we'll have basically the end of the spring and early part of the summer for our casting process, because I feel like it's probably going to take a while. And if we start early, then that kind of gives us a freedom to, I think, try to attract more people who may not be able to just jump in right away, but may have time to do it later, come on board in the fall or something like that.
So, do you know how long that season would be?
It's 3 weekends. I can give you the dates now. Just a minute. Give me 1 second. Let me go grab my book. I haven't put them in the calendar yet.
How are you, Bruce?
Hey, darling. Yeah, yeah. We can talk amongst ourselves. Yeah, good. Really good. Just finally, yeah, feeling a little bit more normal now. It's been a pretty mushy return. Yeah, and the bones are in shock. I came from 35 degrees. Yeah, yeah. But let's meet up soon.
All right, I'm back. So it would be August 23rd, 24th, and 25th. Or basically, we would, that week of the 20th. Monday's the 20th. That's when we could be in the theater. and then we'd have it that week, August 30th through the 1st, and then September 20th through the 22nd. Those dates are just the weekends, but what we'll probably end up doing is we'll run the repertory again. So we'll open with Ernest, but then we'll also do mine and Mary's shows as well. And we'll have a chance to kind of look at it between now and then. We'll see how Mary and I shows fare, how well they sell, and make our decision based on that, how often we do them.
Yes.
But because we have the whole week, like we have the flexibility of trying out whether or not we can get an audience for like a Wednesday show. We'll try like a Sunday matinee for probably Ernest and see how well that sells. It kind of gives us the flexibility to try other days during the week and see what kind of an audience we can get during those times. But yeah.
And can I just so the 4 weeks intense rehearsals is obviously directly before August 20th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So, and it'll be one of those things like we'll solidify the actual rehearsal process once we have a cast, and we can kind of see like what everybody's schedules are and whatnot. But the general thinking with everybody, and Mary was a big reference point for this, was that for actors, it's just a little bit better if they are like, okay, look, it's going to be really hard and a huge time commitment, but for a shorter time period, as opposed to saying, okay, we're going to rehearse every single weekend for the next 6 months. That's just a little bit too like weird, and it's impossible. Like you can't plan a life around that. But you know, if you know you're in rehearsals for 3 weeks. Then that's a little bit more manageable.
Yeah. Although, yeah, in some ways, you know, I'd say like a combination of both. I quite, you know, there's something quite nice about just having that, you know, that a long amount of time to stew over something, I guess. But
yeah, and I mean that's something we can certainly debate about, like in terms of if we want to meet like earlier on and do like character work and character discussions and that kind of stuff, like even before we really get into the depths, so that by the time we sit down and actually buckle down to doing rehearsals, it's like we've solved character relationships, we've solved character dynamics and those types of things.
We're on the same page by the time rehearsal. Yeah.
And so kind of what that then boils down to is we're kind of abandoning the idea of having like a theater company with like company members, just because the style and the structure of what it is we're kind of building and doing doesn't really sustain that, doesn't really support that. I mean, even if we were to have like a set company with company members, we would still hold auditions for every show to see, you know, who's best for each role. But some of the things that were really important to us is we want to create the sense of community. That was something that that Courtney really talked about, how the sense of like community and coming together and like sort of like this family relationship that sort of developed through Christmas Carol was really lovely and made the whole process really, really enjoyable. And we definitely want to maintain that. We definitely want to maintain the sense of that people are committed and they care about it because they like working with the people that they work with, and they feel like the quality of work that they're doing is worth the effort. And so, you know, the other ways that we've tried to like figure out how do we get the buy-in, how do we get the association, how do we get the community, is through these other. Now it's just you and me, Bruce.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Charmaine just said she ran out of battery power, so.
Oh, really?
she's loading up again.
It's all being recorded anyway, isn't it?
Yeah. I'll send it out to everybody. So if you feel like, I missed something.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But yeah, so I mean, that's the biggest thing is like, we want to feel like if you want to be a part of the company, there's a way, even if there's not a role for you. There's still a way to be involved. Like you can look at the jobs that are available for a given show and say, hey, I could do that. I'm totally down with that. Additionally, like if you're in the show and you have a smaller part, you can say, hey, there's a way for me to earn extra money. I can come and do this job and do that job and that job. This earns me extra coins and it invests me more into the community, into the product of what we're trying to put forth. I might have to add her again.
She plugged in.
We'll see. Looks like it. The other good thing too is like as we're adding shows, as we're doing shows over and over again, like each time, then theoretically the cost could go down. The cost of Christmas Carol is going to be much lower, and that obviously drives up the amount of money that we can then pay people. Now, what's really exciting is that as we do find funding, then basically what the funding does is it drives down the actual cost of production.
Yes.
Because then we can pay for the cost of production out of funding money, grants or whatever the case may be, and then that drives up the value of everybody's BERT coin.
Yeah.
And it also enables us to do a bit more, if we have other funding as well, then we can do a little nicer production, nicer costumes, that type of thing. So we'll of course always be looking for funding. Let's try one more time. Oh, she's gone.
Do you feel you've got enough in terms of that looking for funding? How much did Christmas Carol provide some ammunition for going out?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely does. The application period will start in the summer, I think it is. At least that's everything I've heard, is around like May, June, July is when they start opening up applications for grants and funding. And I think certainly we can use Christmas Carol, the fact that it was our first production, that we sold on average 67%, 68% of our audience or available tickets for a first run certainly is positive. I think the sooner we can start building relationships with schools and kind of getting them on board, that gives us even more ammunition to be able to garner that funding. But my understanding is they very rarely give money out to new companies. So I don't have high hopes for getting any kind of funding this year. Or I mean, starting next year, I guess it would be, because that's when the awards would come out in the spring. I'd be very surprised. I mean, we'll try.
Are there aren't sort of special grants that are more specifically for
there may be. I mean, that's something else that we can look into. I mean, that'll definitely be like one of those other additional coins. That somebody could, if they have a forte for that kind of a thing, could really dive in and see, what it takes to fill out an application, to apply, and to make a go of it, for sure. I mean, we won't wait for that to happen. We won't wait for somebody to sign up and say, "Hey, I'll take that job." We'll figure out a way to do it, with or without. Yeah, but hopefully.
Mm, mm. Um,
Any questions?
yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's just my more, you know, in with regards Ernest and casting and stuff. I mean, I don't know. You know, it's just my particular, I guess, the background I came from and the my philosophy with theatre is that I personally don't think, you know, I don't know, yeah, within reason, but you know, I think age appropriateness for cast is really it's not like film. I think that's a film approach, personally, but you know that you know it's essentially we're about, you know, we're we're telling a story, and if it's much better to have yeah, old crusties telling a story about young people really well, rather than people who look the part. And I don't know. Yeah, that's if that's makes any sort of sense.
No, it totally makes sense. You're basically saying, like, if a 40-year-old can do a really good job of playing Cecily, it doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter that she doesn't look 18.
No.
It's better to have somebody who can do a really nice job than casting an 18-year-old who's a terrible actress but looks great.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I suppose I think that's the freedom that, and you know, dare I say, that's part of magic of theatre too. That it's not that, you know, that's film's burden. I think, you know, is that you back, Charmaine?
Yeah, I'm back. How about that?
I'm just talking about the difference between theatre and the burden of film to be age matched. That, you know, that you if you need to have a you know, a young person to play a young person, whereas I don't, you know, my personal opinion is I don't think you need that so much in theatre. Apropos importance of being earnest and the casting thereof. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm just listening.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. That's it. Yeah. But for the sake of this recorded a public service announcement is that we don't want to. I don't know how appropriate that was to bring up in that, but anyway.
No, it's all things are fair and open, and I totally understand where you're coming from, and on some level, I also agree with you. I also agree with you, but there's also a certain amount, especially with the show like The Importance of Being Earnest, where it is so familiar, and it is so well known, that I think you can get away. You can get away with some. Yeah.
I mean,
here's the perfect example.
The only production I've ever seen of it is a two-man show from where, of course, they're playing all ages in drag.
Yeah.
Ridiculous, you know, a ridiculous show, but also very still actually, you know, having fun with the form, but also still delivering the, you know, the thrust of the story or
Yeah.
Right.
Now, and the thing is like I actually considered that, right? I considered doing something really radical and like and obscene with it, and not obscene, but like just completely just throwing everything out and doing maybe like a complete gender reversal kind of a thing where all the men were played by women and all the women were played by men or something like that, and completely like shaking it up and turning it on its end.
Well, maybe that's something to play with in terms of into the audition process. I don't know.
Yeah, but the thing of it is like it's one of those. is one of those things like the team sort of like felt, look, you're still a young company, you're still trying to create a name for yourself, and you want to make sure that the thing that you do is done really, really well. And
yeah, but I suppose in some ways that is a way to, it is a gimmick, of course, that brings attention.
Yeah, but that's not what we want, right? We don't want attention for the fact that it's a gimmick. Yeah.
No, attention as in it gets people, it gets publicity, gets people in, and of course then you still deliver actually a good show.
Yeah.
But that goes without saying.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
Yeah.
But like, so a perfect example of it. Like I thought, okay, look, I think Charmaine could definitely play Gwendolyn. I mean, if she played Belle, she can certainly play Gwendolyn. I think that's totally viable, doable. But then I was thought, okay, well then Mary plays Mrs.
I've forgotten all the names.
Yeah. What's her face? The mom. And then that's kind of where it falls apart for me, right? Because if I had Bruce playing Lady Breckenridge, no.
Bracknell. Is it
Lady Bracknell, yeah. So if we did what is quite typically done with the show when they do like weird gender casting, is they'll have men play Lady Bracknell.
Yes.
Then that would work. Like, I think that would work, having Gwendolyn played by Charmaine, Bruce playing Lady Bracknell.
I should say I've done some lovely brunette work in workshop. I'm totally up for drag.
Yeah.
So have I. I'm a great brunette, actually.
Really, I'll brunette you off. We'll have a brunette off.
Yeah, but so, there's potential there. Anyway,
I suppose
it's just when I was thinking of like having Mary play Lady Bracknell and Gwendolyn played by Charmaine, they're so close in age-wise that then it kind of falls apart for me in terms of when you see them on stage together, right?
I don't know. I mean, again, I don't, but doesn't that come down to the thing called acting and makeup and physicality and all that sort of stuff? I don't know. Maybe I'm being too naive. But
no, I don't think you're too naive.
Just the right amount of naive.
Look, it's still kind of up in the air. I mean, all of that is.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, regardless, we'll still have to have auditions. And even if the only people that show up...
You deal with what... who comes up and what you're given.
Exactly. If the only people that show up are the people who are in Christmas Carol, then we'll make a go of it with what we have. But, I think, to be fair, like we've garnered some attention from the show. I think people are curious about what we're going to do next, and I think hopefully when we post auditions for the next round, it'll give us a bit more weight in terms of the type of people that we'll get and who will come. Not saying that I'm unhappy with the people who were in A Christmas Carol. I think everybody did a great job, but it is what it is. We grow. We look for whatever we can get our hands on.
I'd just like to add for the record too, Ben. When you watch this, I think you'd make a beautiful Lady Bracknell. With your beard.
Yeah, for sure. Unshaven.
Unshaven.
Yeah.
I saw it recently. It's a fabulous beard.
So that's that. That's the plan. And then of course, Christmas Carol opens. I think around the 6th or the 7th of December. And that'll be our 2018 go.
Mm-hmm. Great.
predicted rehearsals for Christmas Carol?
Yeah, great. That of course depends on who's back, right? And if it's the exact same cast and everything, I mean, I think I'll probably recast the kids.